Hey, old man, do you know what I called you in today? After lunch break, I was immediately summoned by my director, Anderson. I headed straight to the CEO's office, which had recently changed hands. I'm sorry, did I make a mistake? In this company, there's no job suitable for old-timers like you, so you don't have to come in from tomorrow. It took me a moment to comprehend, but I had just been fired. I have been with this company since my 20s, making it 35 years. Suddenly, I was out of work. Anderson often pointed out my lack of urgency and slowness in my work. I always tried to work meticulously, keeping the company's relationships in mind. Was that my downfall? Feeling the weight of the unfairness, I realized I needed to find a new job ASAP. At that time, I hadn't even considered the possibility of retaliating against Anderson or the CEO. My name is David. I'm a designer and 50-something years old. Just 3 years ago, I lost my wife and have been living alone ever since. To drown my loneliness, I dove deeper into my work than ever before. In this digital age, it might be uncommon, but I design using paints and paper. My work was highly appreciated by the previous CEO and our clients. However, it seemed Anderson wasn't a fan. He would often badmouth me when the CEO wasn't around. When the previous CEO passed away unexpectedly, a new, younger CEO took over. He was keen on introducing new technologies and phased out the old ones. Anderson, being close to the CEO, seemed to be completely on board with these modern ideas. I felt he was desperate to catch up with the modern way of thinking. From now on, we will switch all operations to computer-based systems. Since the day that was announced, using paint for designs was prohibited, and instead, we were to use computer software. I've been in this industry for nearly 30 years, but I've hardly ever designed using software. My knowledge was equivalent to that of a student fresh out of school. I regretted not having studied this earlier. Admitting my mistake, I started studying design software every day from then on. There were people in their 20s, fresh out of college, at the company, and I managed to learn a lot from them, eventually acquiring enough skill to do my job. The move to this policy was due to the young, 30-something second-generation CEO wanting to take on what's currently trending. I was the only one in this department who was a beginner at using design software, so the looks from Anderson stung a bit. At first, I was making design corrections for my subordinates as a form of study, but gradually I started to receive my own work. Having been in the industry for so long, I felt confident that once I had the knowledge, I could create designs that would not be inferior to the younger generation. However, it seemed like Anderson didn't think too highly of my work. "You're a bit too slow. People younger than you are faster, so get it together." "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm still not quite up to speed." "Make sure you do. We can't give you much work because the quality isn't there yet." "I'm sorry." Conversations like this happened at least once a day. A subordinate who had seen this told me not to worry and to ask them anything, which was a relief. But being rushed every day made me panic and rapidly lose confidence. Maybe this job isn't for someone my age, as retirement is nearing. I thought about taking early retirement. I was living with those thoughts. One day, we received a request from a long-standing client company. They wanted a design made with paint. However, our company mandated the use of computer software. I wanted to take on the request to meet the client's needs. I decided to discuss it once with Anderson. "Anderson, I have a consultation. A client has requested a design using paint, and I'm asking for permission just this once to create without using software." "Huh, what are you talking about? Didn't we mandate the use of software for everything recently? But there is a certain demand for this. We have maintained a long relationship with this client, and to continue working with them, that's impossible. This is why old people are not useful. Can't you see that analog is behind the times? Didn't the CEO say so? The area is digital. AI might even come into play soon. If you can't keep up, it's impossible for you to stay in this industry. I have learned the software knowledge from the juniors. Depending on the time and situation, I can use either. Is that still not good enough? You're a stubborn old man. Just give up. I was practically thrown out of the CEO's office. Lately, Anderson have been clinging to the CEO, doing whatever he said. After that, I attempted to negotiate with Anderson several times but to no avail. It's about time I get back to the client with a response. One day, I was summoned to the CEO's office by Anderson. By then, I had almost no work left, so I had a rough idea of what would be discussed. Upon arrival, I bowed deeply. The CEO sat in his chair, looking down on me with that familiar condescending gaze. I recognized that face. People make the same face when they're pushing you away. To be honest, I don't remember much of what Anderson and I discussed after entering the room. However, one sentence resonated strangely in my mind. You don't have to come from tomorrow. Yes. Thank you for everything until now. Within half a year after the change to the second-generation CEO, I was out of a job. And not just any exit, I was fired. It was a good thing my wife wasn't around anymore to see this. If I showed myself like this, it would be embarrassingly unbearable. I felt so pitiful and, without saying a word to anyone, I left the company. To the juniors who taught me about the software and the clients, I felt sorry, but I lacked the courage to express my gratitude or apologize. Since I was technically fired, I guess unemployment benefits would kick in immediately. However, I wanted to work right away. I feared if I continued to feel this sad, I might even fall. That was on my mind. But I often wondered, as Anderson used to say, is there really a place that would hire an old man like me? I had experience as a designer, but I worried if my inability to use the software would be a stumbling block again. Despite the anxiety, I sent out resumes to various companies. Design, customer service, wholesale, clerical work. I must have sent out nearly 20 resumes. Only 5 companies called me for an interview, and just one progressed to the final round. And that one company was a rival of my former employer. I had no expectations of getting the job. You've certainly got the know-how. I had a look at the designs you've been working on, and they are all meticulously made and easy on the eyes. I'd really love for you to work with us. What do you say? Really? Absolutely. I'd love to work with you. Then, how about starting a week from now? And I'd like you to show our newcomer the ropes on how to design the old-fashioned way. Thank you so much. It felt so good to be recognized for my skills again. I was going to be a designer once more. A month had passed since I joined the company, and I was getting the hang of things, albeit slowly. Then something shocking happened. On my first payday at this company, my take-home pay had nearly increased by $2,000. It's a bit crass to say, but this company pays incredibly well. I muttered under my breath, and Sam laughed heartily. That's because you're incredibly skilled, David. I don't know how much you made at your last job, but you're a special talent that would thrive anywhere. I felt a bit bashful but very happy. While learning the ropes and earning praise from both my juniors and Sam, I wondered if I was truly becoming an asset to the team. That's when my phone rang. It was Anderson. I hesitantly answered, only to be greeted with an angry tirade. As a professional and an adult, you're disqualified. Everyone's in trouble because of you. Please, calm down. What happened? There's no time for what happened. You left the job without handing anything over. We have none of the client information or past data. That's because I was told to leave on the day, and there wasn't any time. Such poor excuses. What have you done to us? Send over the handover data within 2 days. You're unemployed and free right now, right? Thanks in advance. The call ended abruptly, with the responsibility unilaterally pushed onto me. What would Anderson think if he knew I was working for a rival company? I had new assignments at my current job and needed to start on them immediately. I was troubled and decided to consult with Sam. "Sam, sorry to bother you. I just got a call from my previous workplace, and they urgently requested that I send over handover documents. I'm considering stepping out for about 2 hours to take care of this." That's fine, but you've already left that place, and it wasn't on the best of terms, right? "Yes, that's true. It's really up to you, David. It's hard to have confidence sometimes, but you should have confidence at a good level because you are doing a great job." Deep down, I knew I didn't have to do this. But it became certain after his words. "Thank you, I'll stay put today." After our conversation, Sam gave me a warm smile and went back to his work. That day, I didn't touch the handover documents. With that, I had completely severed ties with my former company. "Sorry for the sudden call. This is John. Do you remember me?" About a month had passed since I'd ignored Anderson's calls and cut off contact, when John, a former junior of mine, reached out. Wary that he might have been prompted by Anderson, I nervously answered the call to hear an obviously flustered voice. "Yes, I remember you. I'm sorry for quitting so abruptly and causing trouble. What happened today?" "No worries at all. You left because of the CEO and the director, right? We've been having some troubles. From what I've heard, it seems like employees in their 40s and 50s, other than myself, are being laid off across the board. It's like the company is now being run by the remaining younger employees. Moreover, there have been a lot of problems because there wasn't a proper handover. We actually just lost a major client, and the CEO is on edge. Plus, there seems to be a lot of inadequate communication between departments, leading to missed deadlines. What should I do?" I suggested that such coordinating tasks should be left to a supervisor, since he's a new recruit and doesn't bear that much responsibility yet, trying to console him a bit. Then he replied with some difficulty. "The thing is, I'm the leader. After all the senior staff resigned, the CEO told me that young people need to step up in this new era and that I should become a leader to incorporate their perspectives." John sounded utterly despondent. He's a rookie who just joined this year. Even I, not the strongest-willed person, can tell something is off. Still, I felt resistance to the idea of protesting directly to the CEO or the director. From what I've heard about his workload, it seems he's been burdened with a lot. Departmental coordination, visiting clients, dealing with older employees, meetings with the CEO. This could break him. He taught me how to use some design software. I wanted to help him, partly as a thank you. When I asked him what was the biggest challenge right now, he said, "There's this client you used to handle, and it looks like we're going to lose their contract. The CEO has said that's the one thing he wants to keep at all costs, but honestly, with the current management strategy, it seems unlikely. Indeed, the client I used to manage favored designs using traditional paints and paper. I'm at my limit. I've tried to hold on for 6 months, but I can't keep this up. But I'm the leader, and there are seniors here. He seems to be considering quitting. Something has to be done before his spirit breaks." I had an idea that I decided to share with John. At first, he was surprised, but it seemed like he gradually took in what I was saying. "Thank you for listening. Thanks to you, David, I've made up my mind. I owe a lot to you, John. Come talk to me anytime if you need to. I'll be waiting." With that, I hung up the phone. I hope I can be of some help to John. Today was the day I had taken the morning off. I woke up to a surprise. I had over 10 missed calls from private numbers. It could even be over 30. I called back with some trepidation, and my bad feeling was confirmed. "You're late. What did you tell John? Because of you, everything is ruined." It was rare to hear Anderson so flustered on the phone. What on earth happened? I did, in fact, share some information with John. That's true. John took unscheduled leave today. He's not answering emails or calls, and when we checked his desk, there was a note in the corner saying going to David's place. His actions were so swift, I was taken aback. I had simply offered to introduce him to my current workplace if he wanted. Of course, I told him that I couldn't guarantee he would get an interview. How are you going to make this right? We have deadlines for various projects coming up. This is all your fault. I'll sue you. The word sue made me flinch, and just as I was about to respond, I heard an employee call out for Anderson. There were also sounds of phones ringing, footsteps. It seems like things might be quite chaotic. As I was casually pondering this, the phone abruptly hung up. I've always had trouble digesting Anderson's words. They have a certain edge to them. But I'm different from how I used to be. Half a year into my new company, I've gained a lot of confidence. If someone asked what the heck the old man was rambling about, I'd be at a loss for words, but it seems like I've managed to grow not just technically, but emotionally as well. I don't think this is my fault, but the word sue still lingers in my mind. I decided to consult with Sam about it. In the afternoon, I went to work as usual. And there, talking happily with Sam, was a young man with a familiar face. "Ah, David, thank you for everything. I really owe you one for all you did for me at the previous company, and thank you so much for the other day. It's great to see you're doing well. I heard from Anderson. Did you quit abruptly? Has that gotten out? I'm embarrassed. I guess I've failed as a professional." "Not at all, John. It's your life. If you've hit your limit, it's okay to run away. But what were you planning to do if you didn't pass this interview?" "Well, I would have winged it." Such a typically youthful response. I really like that way of thinking. Come to think of it, he's here for an interview, isn't he? I wonder if he passed. Feeling a bit anxious, I glanced at Sam. After a moment of silence, Sam grinned and formed a big circle with his hands above his head. I felt relieved and the tension left my shoulders. Later, John asked me why I knew he had quit, so I told him honestly about what happened that morning. "John quit because of me. They said they would sue. I wonder, will I be sued?" Sam looked dumbfounded for a moment, but soon returned to his usual smile and assured me that based on what I and John had been through, there was no chance for the other side to win, so I should rest easy. "From what you've told me, it sounds like what they are doing is wrongful termination. Maybe we have the stronger case. Be confident. By the way, was the CEO always that kind of person?" Sam reminisced about the times our companies collaborated and when we once went out for drinks. The CEO he spoke of seemed gentle and calm, which brought back nostalgic feelings. That might be the father, the first-generation CEO. It changed to the second generation after he passed away. Really, I thought something was off since they seemed like completely different people. I see now. I have a feeling that company won't last another few months. Actually, 3 of my colleagues who joined as fresh graduates also resigned today, and my current boss said he's resigning too. It's unforgivable for them to let the company that their father worked so hard to maintain go bankrupt. All right, next time they contact you, let me handle it. I'll give them a piece of my mind. Right after he said that, Sam's cell phone rang and he swiftly left the room. Honestly, I had a hunch that the company was on the brink of bankruptcy. Just young employees with limited work experience are starting new ventures and building relationships with various companies. That's no easy feat. While pondering this, chatting with John, my phone rang. It was a blocked number. I immediately answered the call, and I could hear Anderson's voice, almost like a scream, at a high volume. John seemed very surprised by it too. "Hey, sort this mess out. I've been dealing with one thing after another since morning, and we're short-staffed. I've resigned as well. There's nothing I can do. Aren't you unemployed? You can at least show up and lend a hand. When else are you going to look cool, old man?" We must have repeated such an exchange for about 5 minutes. I was considering hanging up when I heard a rather loud voice from the side. I've been listening quietly up till now. What kind of way is that to ask for help? That's no way to talk to people. Who's the real adult here? After a moment of silence, John let out all he had been holding back, yelling into the phone. Then Anderson started speaking in a shaky voice. "John, is that you, John? Please, I'm not angry. Come back. The CEO is waiting. We need you." He muttered to himself, but John clearly said, "No." Anderson then spoke in a disheartened voice. "Are you saying, even if I get fired, the company can't run without me? I'm young, not an old man, so I won't be fired." It seemed he was afraid of being fired. He has a middle school-aged child. He must be worried. But he's 49, just 4 years younger than me. To the second-generation CEO, he must seem like an old man. "Look, if you continue the contract with the client David used to handle, I'll tell the CEO to give you a raise immediately. So, won't you come back?" About that client, they've just signed a contract with our company." It seems Anderson and John's loud voices were overheard by Sam. He relayed the facts, as if discarding them. When I had spoken with John on the phone, I had asked him to let my former client know where I was if he was coming to this company for an interview. "Who the heck are you, outsiders? Get out. I'm talking to John here." "Anderson, buddy, I think we've met before, don't you remember? It was back when the previous CEO was around. We had a drink together. I'm Sam Smith. You seemed so genuine at the drinking party. Was that just for show?" When Anderson remembered Sam, he lost his cool big time. He was probably shocked that an outsider, and from a competing company no less, had seen his true nature, not to mention that I and John were there at the rival firm. What am I supposed to say to the CEO? At this point, I don't care if it's David anymore. I'll hire you again, so come over to our place right now. The next moment, Anderson was getting called out on his choice of words by Sam. Anderson was still confused, and all the chaos around footsteps, phones ringing, sounds of apologies was audible over the phone. "David, I'm sorry. All right. Please come back. You can stay forever this time. Can you pay me 10 times the salary?" "What?" I could hear the life go out of his voice. Anderson probably believed I'd come back because I was timid. But now, I have a place at Sam's company. There's nothing to fear. 10 times? What are you talking about? You know our company doesn't have that kind of money, right? If you can't pay, then it's impossible. Please do your best as you are. I'm getting about twice the salary you guys are at my current company. I have no intention of coming back. Anderson was saying something, but I could barely make it out over the background noise. After a while, I just heard noise until the call eventually dropped. After that, there was a moment that seemed to stand still, but I snapped out of it when John said, "That was pretty cool." Things moved fast after that. The staff kept quitting, and in the end, there were less than a third left. Unable to continue working with such a shortage of hands, it seems the company went bankrupt 3 months after my last contact with Anderson. Anderson apparently didn't get fired due to the shortage of people, but he ended up losing his job anyway. I heard from a former colleague at the old company. Anderson can't find work now and is separating from his wife and daughter until he can find a job. It seems his domineering attitude towards his subordinates also got out to his family. I heard they might even get a divorce. Anderson seems desperate, but without having the CEO as a short-term hold, I wonder how he's making decisions now. "David, that last design was great. You're really something. Glad we hired you. It's been a year since I started working here. This company recognizes and praises me. Everyone works to lift each other up. That day, I was in despair, but I'm here now because I was let go that day. In a way, I'm thankful to the CEO of the previous company and Anderson. I'm swamped with work I've been entrusted with, but it's a good kind of busy. Until retirement, no. As long as they'll have me, I plan to work my hardest."